Journalist Bob Woodward of Watergate fame with a message for the mainstream media. Woodward pushing back against criticism of President Trump by the media in an online video for The Atlantic, saying in part, here's a quote, "We are not at the Watergate level yet. I think it serves no one, the media or Trump, to have a thermonuclear war with each other. We need to calm it down, listen more, be on the surface respectful, but as reporters, be as aggressive as possible." Don Calloway joins us, Democratic strategist, former Missouri State Representative. Chris Wilson is with us, former campaign pollster for Ted Cruz and partner at WPA Opinion Research. Guys, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having us.
So, Don, is Woodward right?
He's absolutely right. I mean, he's perhaps the gold standard in this profession that we all have engaged in to some degree. But I think that both sides bear substantial responsibility for this. From the beginning of his campaign, President Trump came out calling the media fake news and the lying media. He sent out Mr. Spicer on more than one occasion with alternative facts. But I think that the media has to be more measured in their response to that while still reporting the facts. So I think there's substantial responsibility to be shared around this thing.
You know, Chris, I was watching the coverage last night on other networks as the news broke by the Washington Post about Jared Kushner trying to establish back-channel communications. And the hysteria reached a deafening pitch over and over again. You know, anchors and pundits and reporters are saying it's a bombshell report. My goodness, this nation has for years established back-channel communications, most notably to defuse the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. So, I mean, how is this a bombshell, and isn't this an example of the media really going apoplectic?
Well, it is. First of all, I'm really surprised you were watching other networks last night, but we'll leave that unspotted.
Oh, I like to check out the competition.
I think you're right, and it's disturbing to watch because, as someone who sort of observes this from the campaign perspective, I think the media is doing a lot to tarnish their image, and that is frankly bad for democracy. And when you take a situation, and Zeke Miller, who is an excellent reporter of Time magazine, who tweets out that Donald Trump has removed Martin Luther King Jr.'s bust from the Oval Office, immediately corrects it, but it ends up, the correction is not followed at the same level as the charge. James Landell, the BBC, right now has a tweet up when I walked into the studio in which he had accused Donald Trump of not listening to the final speech of the G7 summit that had been retweeted 12,000 times. The correction that he posted just a few minutes later, that Trump only had his translator in the right ear, had only been retweeted 40 times. It was actually 39 when I came on. That is the level of hypocrisy and sloppiness that creates these challenges for the media. And it is as long as they're going to throw around charges like Watergate, when they refuse to give that same level of reporting to scandals like, and you could go right through them, everything from the IRS targeting Obama's enemies, to Fast and Furious, to GSA Gone Wild, to the VA spending $6 million in Disney World. What they are doing is they're allowing Donald Trump to do exactly what Don said, is to call in the enemy, and the more that they do it, the more that they play into the base.
Don, one wonders what underlies all of this. Is there such unabashed scorn and disdain, and indeed in some quarters of the media, visceral hatred of President Donald Trump, that it is really deeply coloring not only the stories they choose to cover, but the way they communicate those stories?
Well, hey, journalists are human. We're all human and prone to the susceptibilities of when we feel attacked, we respond in a certain way. But again, I suggest that the president has done himself no favors. Yes, every story is not breaking news, and every story should not rise to an apoplectic level. However, all these stories about Russia and the ongoing probes, all of them taken in their totality, do suggest that there could be a problem. And the mainstream media is not wrong for continuing to report in a consistent fashion on this. But I do think, again, that both sides could use a little bit of toning down and a more respectful tenor overall to the conversation. It's just not a very productive one right now, and both sides share substantial responsibility in that relationship.
Chris, I mean, I really do watch very carefully, as I mentioned before, other networks, because I like to know what they're reporting, because we often talk about it. And what I found is that the media is cavalierly and recklessly throwing around terms like collusion and a crime and putting them together. even though, as Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz repeatedly tells them, sorry, it's not a crime in a political campaign. In antitrust it is, price fixing and anti-competitive behavior, but there's no criminal statute that outlaws and criminalizes collusion in a political campaign. And yet the media tends to completely ignore that and be oblivious to it. Are they guilty of that?
Well, of course they are, and it's the old world media, where it's the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN. It's like they have a renewed fervor, for fact-checking that didn't exist under the Obama administration. I went through scandals, but if we go into foreign policy challenges, the same thing exists. What about the Obama administration allowing the leak of the name of the Pakistani doctor who turned in bin Laden, that has now been sentenced for high treason and is rotting in jail? The reason we captured or killed Osama bin Laden is in jail now because of leaks from the Obama administration. How many of your listeners know about that? And those are the kind of things that if they happened under the Trump administration, this renewed fervor would create a level of heightened awareness amongst the media that they would just all be going nuts over it, and it doesn't occur now.
Leaks are illegal, and some leaks are more illegal than others, and it seems like the media pays no attention to any of that. Gentlemen, Chris Wilson, Don Calloway, guys, we could talk about this for several hours. Maybe we will off camera. Guys, thanks so much.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.
You bet. Thank you.
All right.